What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the freaking channel. We have another special video for you guys. You guys have been so freaking good. I'm gonna stop using that word. That's really inappropriate. But every single year I make a video about a lot of Samsung phones, and I actually haven't been talking about this specific phone too much because I overlooked it quite a bit. I was like, you know what? This is a phone that pretty much looks like the Galaxy S9, pretty much looks like every other phone that's being released. So for some reason, it's such a stupid bias for me. I kind of overlooked it, and I really shouldn't have, because this phone still surprises me to this day. It's crazy how, like, as soon as I picked it up and looked it around, I'm like, this phone is still super crazy. And I just had the Galaxy S8 Plus and the S9 Plus and basically every other phone ever released. And the fact that this phone, I wouldn't say started the bezel-less trend, but really kind of pushed that initiative of kind of making phones with slimmer bezels and everything like that. And I don't think this phone really got the credit it deserved. Now, I'm not saying the Samsung Galaxy S8 specifically started this revolution. I mean, we've seen phones like the Nexus 6 become like super bezel-less, the Sharp Oculus Crystal, whatever that phone was. But I think on a huge scale, on a humongous scale, like Samsung did with the Galaxy S8, is super cool, and I have to show so much respect. I have to bow down to this phone every time I see it. Now, the Samsung Galaxy S8 was released in March of 2017. Now, I say March of 2017, that's super important, the month, because the iPhone 10 was released in September. So I'm not going to say the iPhone 10 copied this, but I do want to say that it really pushed the initiative, like I said earlier on in this video. And looking around this body, let me tell you, this phone still feels extremely premium, okay? I honestly think this phone, I don't know any other phone that feels more premium than this thing. I think this thing still feels like $1,000 phone almost. The Samsung Galaxy S9 that I just had feels exactly the same. The Galaxy Note 8, the Galaxy Note 9, all these phones feel pretty much the same with each other. So in terms of premiumness, I still think, Samsung does such a good job at this, because even the Samsung Galaxy S7, dude, even the Samsung Galaxy S6 still feels like a very premium phone, more so the Galaxy S7, but I gotta give credit where credit is due, and this phone still feels very premium. So we have a 5.8-inch Super AMOLED screen on the front, and surprisingly, there was no home button, there was no fingerprint sensor on the front, there was one on the back. And this is the first time we saw Samsung move away from that home button design. And I always imagined, like, when I had an Android phone, like, Samsung would never move to like a navigation bar button or anything, nav bar buttons, but they did, and it was definitely something that had to grow on me because I was not used to it. But right now I'm completely used to it, and I'm so happy they did that. The screen is 1440p, and it does have this thing where it's like 3D touch on the bottom home button. I don't know why they did that. I guess it kind of adds a little bit of value, like people who miss the home button, they can like force touch on it, and it's kind of fun because it just like vibrates that part of the phone. But I guess it's whatever. I mean, it really adds no added value, and it does have an always on display, and this is kind of weird to me. I'm so not used to it, and I just feel like it's like using a bunch of phone battery, and I know you can turn it off, but I kind of like it at the same time. I just wish there was a way to like hide all the information, and maybe there is. I didn't even dig into it that much, but maybe just like have the time up. I don't really want all my notifications being just straight up on the phone display, so that's kind of that. Now, this phone is IP68 dust and water resistant, so that's super cool. And looking on the back, obviously glass on the back, fingerprint sensor up top, and it's kind of at a dumb place. They should have really put it below the camera sensor, even just in the middle of the phone. They eventually did change it with the Galaxy S9, and you have a USB Type-C on the bottom as well as a headphone jack. So that's pretty much it, man. On the outside, it's pretty minimalistic in a way, kind of doesn't have too much going on, but at the same time, it feels like a very good phone. I don't want that to be like an underappreciated factor of this. Now, turning it on, this is kind of crucial, okay, because it started off with Android Nougat. You are able to get Android Oreo on it, and Samsung recently started pushing this initiative of their One UI. So before it was on TouchWiz, and now they're actually doing One UI. So that's going to be, I guess, an Android Pie based ROM, and there's already a lot of betas out for it. I don't know if you can get it for Samsung Galaxy S8 yet, but the Samsung Galaxy S8 is supported for it, so hopefully that will be coming out fairly soon. I know Samsung, I never like TouchWiz, and from what I'm seeing with One UI, it seems like it's pretty decent. I mean, I still have to get my hands on it and test it, but compared to, I think at this point, anything is better than TouchWiz. I think that was a very strange software, even just from the beginning point, even up till now. I don't really like it. It just seems very like bloated and just unnecessary stuff just filled to the brim on it. But the fact that they're switching it up just makes me so happy. And in terms of software, I think that's where it's going to end. I don't think it's going to go any further than Android Pie. I mean, it's also obviously it's going to get security updates for a minute, but I think Android Pie, the One UI first update, will probably be its last update, which kind of makes sense. I mean, it got 3 versions of Android. Hopefully it goes further, but there's also a little bit of custom ROM community behind it. You are able to root it in custom ROM from it. So I've seen some Android Oreo ROMs, some Android Pie ROMs as well. So if you're into that, if you're into rooting and ROMing your phone, you do have the capability of that with this phone. And I probably wouldn't recommend it yet, but probably in a year from now I would, because it's not going to be supported. So I always go with this, like, never root and customize your phone if your phone is still supported, unless you know what you're doing. Other than that, you should probably keep it stock as of now. Now switching to the performance of this phone, I'll say the specs and I'll tell you my opinion about it. So it has the Qualcomm Snapdragon 835 chipset, an octa-core CPU on some variants, and on other variants it's a little bit different, an Adreno 540 GPU, and 4 gigs of RAM. And I'll tell you right now, man, this phone still is blazing fast, okay? When I'm opening apps, closing apps, whatever you want it's going to be perfectly fine on this device. It's not the best though, I have noticed, and I think this is a software thing more than anything. It seems like there's some glitches when I open an app or like quickly open it and like try to get through it, because it'll kind of like stutter here and there. But I think that's more so of a software thing. In terms of the actual performance of me using this phone, I really don't have too many complaints about it. It's really been able to hold up just fine. And like I said, I've had the Galaxy S9 here not too long ago. I had the S9 Plus, even the S8 Plus, all these phones, and I don't know if this was faster than that. Like if you just gave me this phone and be like, hey, which phone is it? I would probably have assumed the Galaxy S9 just based off the performance, because this phone is still extremely fast for my usage. And I know a lot of people are out there that are probably saying, oh man, the Google Pixel 3 is so much faster, the Galaxy S9 is this and that. And yeah, I'm sure those phones are faster, but I'm one of those people, if you've seen my videos, I don't demand too much. I also factor in the age of this phone, the price of this phone. This thing isn't selling for like $1,000. It's not selling for even $500. This thing is selling for maybe like $200-$300, probably less than that. So I have nothing but good things to say about the performance of this phone. And that kind of goes to say with gaming as well. I don't have any problems with gaming. I think casual games run perfectly fine. Heavier intensive games like Real Racing 3 and those games run perfectly fine as well. Like maybe there's a couple glitch frames if I really had to look hard and squint at the frames, but I think for my usage, which isn't really that demanding, I think this phone is still very, very good. And honestly, like I was thinking about this, if I were to own an Android right now for some reason and I wanted the best value per dollar for an Android device, I would probably pick the Galaxy S8 or maybe like a Google Pixel 2 maybe, but the Galaxy S8 is still very premium in the hands and it's still very good in performance too. So really in terms of performance, I think it gets a very good score from me. Now switching to the camera, this is also a very good sign of this phone. It's a 12 megapixel sensor on the back, and you know what, even though it doesn't have a dual camera setup or anything like that, you do have optical image stabilization and you can shoot 4K videos and 1080p videos at up to 60 frames per second. I really wish they had a 120 frames per second option, but you know what, it's all good, whatever. And the photos this thing takes are very, very good as well, and like again, I think Samsung does this thing where they overexpose their photos quite a bit in their images, or maybe it's just the way the screen is set up, but I like it. I don't really have any problems with the photos. Like if you took a photo on like an iPhone XS and a Galaxy S8, would I be able to tell the difference? Maybe, okay, but overall I think the Galaxy S8 camera is still very, very good. There's a lot of features built into the camera as well. I like their UI a little bit more than most other UIs out there, especially LG's. That's kind of ugly. Google did a pretty decent job because theirs is minimalistic, but there's still like not a ton of features in their UI. Galaxy S8, Samsung did a really good job of putting most of the features and a lot of features on their cameras. So I think the Galaxy S8 it also has an 8 megapixel front camera, and I think it's okay. Like I think it's definitely improved since like the Galaxy S6, S7 era. You can shoot 1440p videos on it, but I think overall, with both cameras considered, I think it's a very good sensor. Now moving on to the battery life, this is also pretty interesting because it has a 3000 mAh battery, and you do have Qi wireless charging. Like I said, you have USB Type-C, and overall, I think that this battery life is fairly decent. Okay, I don't think it's amazing, but I don't think it's really bad either. I think it's like right there, dead in the center. You will 100% be able to get like a full day of use out of it, depending on your usage, obviously. But I think as a whole, like my usage isn't really that demanding. So I'll definitely tell you without a doubt, if your usage isn't too demanding, the battery life on this phone is very, very solid. Now, some other notable things to note. This thing also has a micro SD card slot. So if you want to expand the storage, you have that option. You can do up to 512 gigs. So that is super crazy. You can just get the base model of this phone, put a half a terabyte of memory in it and just be set. You won't have to worry about it. So that is super, super cool. Like I said, this thing is IP68 dust and water resistant, so that's super, super awesome as well. And man, I'm just a huge fan of the build of this phone. Of course, the bezels could be smaller. They're going to get smaller with the Galaxy S10, but I think overall the body is one of the biggest pluses of this phone, and let alone the performance and let alone like everything else. I think really the only downside of this would probably be TouchWiz, and really that's about it, man. So would I recommend the Galaxy S8 in 2019? This is what I'll tell you. I think this phone is one of the greatest values per dollar in the Android side of things, even just in phones in general. You can probably pick one of these up. Like I picked mine up for like $180 $100, I believe. To be on the safe side, you'll probably end up spending like around $200, but you can get them for cheaper than that, like I did. And this is still a very, very solid phone, even if you keep it stock. I mean, really, what is this phone missing that the newer phones have? Really, maybe the fingerprint sensor is weirdly shaped and on an awkward spot, but I think for a lot of people that'll be okay. The screen is super awesome. It's vivid. It's awesome. It's OLED. Extremely very well built. Decent battery life, I would say on the better side. You're still kind of being supported in software. A great camera, an iris scanner, I guess, if you're into that, and so many other things. I mean, what I'll tell you is, man, I think the Samsung Galaxy S8 is still worth it in 2019. It's a very, very good phone, and there's not a lot of competitors around this price tag that I would still recommend. So what I'll do is, if you want the cheapest prices, obviously go on eBay or Craigslist. Those are probably where you can find the cheapest prices for the Samsung Galaxy S8, but I'll go ahead and find the cheapest one I find on Amazon, and I'll link it straight below. So if you have an Amazon account, it's so much easier to buy, and every sale that goes through that link actually helps support the channel, and we can do more giveaways and videos like this. So if you want to buy it on Amazon for the cheapest price, click that first link down in the description, and we'd really appreciate it. But that is pretty much it. If you guys have any questions or anything like that, leave it down in the comment section below. Hit that like button, that'll mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count, so it'll mean so much if you guys could hit that. Also, check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my second channel, all those links are linked down below. I'd really appreciate if you guys could check it out. But more importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.